Two. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Six Figure Agent Podcast. We got John Mikesh on the line. How you
Hey,
doing,
what's up,
John?
guys? I'm doing great. Excited to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you. So a little bio on John. He got licensed back in 2003, and he evolved from being a single agent and eventually started building a team back in 2009. In 2014, his wife, Jennifer, and him decided to open up their own independent brand, Roost Real Estate. Jennifer handles operations, which has allowed him to focus on growing the sales force. He's been out of production since 2015, and his team continues to sell over $75 million a year. His goals for 2018 include aggressive health goals, going vegan, and also not consuming any alcohol, building up new leaders at Roost, as well as starting prospector coaching in order to share with agents what he's learned and what he's doing in building his business. Cool. Love it, man. So let's jump in. So you started all the way back in 2003. So if you can remember all the way back then, what was your first year like in real estate?
Oh, my first year, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I had gotten into real estate. The guy who got me into real estate just approached me, and I was actually working another business for him in interior design. And he was one of four partners, and that business was quickly dissolving. Too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. Everybody was trying to run it a different way. And he pulled me aside one day and said, hey, I got this real estate company, which you obviously know, and I think you'd be great at it. And he was like, here's $10,000. Come join me. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, the money's yours to keep. He said, I think you can make twice as much money in half the time. And I was like, wow, nobody ever believed in me like that before. And I was excited. That was a lot of money to me back then, just starting out. And I jumped in with both feet, became top 10 in my MLS board. This was in an upstate New York environment, and really enjoyed it, really loved it.
That's awesome. So fast forward all the way to 2009, you started your team. Tell us a little bit about early on starting the team. What was the thought process for wanting to do that? And did it take off right away, or was there some struggles?
Well, so in 2003, I get licensed in upstate New York. I'm in real estate. Kind of right out of the gate, I had a lot of success, at least success by my standards at that time. I was selling six figures in my first year, and I went on to continue to do that year after year. But I was up there for 3 years, and I knew I wanted to start a family, get married, and I knew I didn't want to grow up in that area where I was from. I just wanted something more. I just saw that I was going to limit my potential by staying there. And my wife and I, we had just recently gotten married, and we decided we were going to come down to Charlotte, North Carolina to live. So I left all my business that I had spent the 3 years building up there, all my past clients and referral contacts, and I just started anew. And my thought process was this: if I'm ever going to do it, it's easier to do it then than before it got even bigger. I got more established. So we started out in 2006 in Charlotte, North Carolina, fell on my face completely. I was working 3 jobs. I was waiting tables at a restaurant, making no money. I was trying to do real estate, and I was also working for a seismograph company where I was traveling the whole country or the whole state of North Carolina, leaving at 3 a.m. to go download seismograph readings. It was miserable. But I was willing to do whatever it took to make it happen. And it was around that 2009 time where I had sort of figured some things out with the help of some people and started building a team.
Awesome. Love it. So it's 2009. You started your team. I mean, what did that first year look like? How did you structure your team? What kind of volume were you guys doing?
So by 2009, I was starting to make some sales happen. And, I kind of maxed myself out first from a capacity standpoint. And I was like, hey, I need help. So naturally, first thing I look to is my family. I noticed my sister was working for a finance company, making no money, horrible hours, horrible commute. And I said to her, hey, I think you'd be really good at real estate. Why don't you come in and help me and get your license? And she started out as my assistant, which allowed me a little bit more capacity to go sell some more. And then she got licensed and she became my buyer's agent. And through the success that we were having at the office, other people started to notice, and then other people who were struggling in that office asked if they could join my team. And it really happened very organically. It wasn't like ads or anything like that. To this day, I still don't run ads for agents. It's more of an organic, people see what we're doing, they want to be a part of it, and they come to us.
I love it. So once you decided to start the team, I mean, how much total volume, what were you selling as an individual before you just decided to start the team?
Yeah, so I maxed out at around 32 million a year by myself, and that was like me and my sister as an assistant, and it wasn't sustainable. Like, it was great, profitability wise and income wise. I was able to kind of generate the capital I needed to grow the team, but I quickly realized if I was going to do something sustainable that was going to last and be a value add to the community, I had to grow and leverage a team concept. And, going back to that 2009 era, what did it for me, like my big aha, if you will, was I was grinding it out as a single agent by myself and struggling, but like starting to make some sales happen, but then kind of had those ups and downs that, we sometimes get as agents, because, I'd get a few sales and then I'd be like, all right, now I got to get these sales to closing. And I was at an office at the time, and a guy came into the office and he had tickets to a conference, a coaching seminar. And I was like, man, I should go to that. Like, I got to figure something out. And I went to this conference, and it was down in Orlando, 2009, September. And I was like, whoa, like what I thought I was doing well, I had no clue. I saw people succeeding at such a high level, and I was so inspired by that trip that I became very coachable. So I put my ego aside. I was like, hey, whatever I've done doesn't matter. Like, I got to figure this out on a different level. I started buying into what they were doing, and I got the coaching, and I became extremely coachable, and I just followed a system. And by following that system, my sales grew. Again, I capped out at like that 32 million a year mark. And then I started bringing on team members, sacrificing personal production to help them become successful. And that's what really helped me get a team off the ground. And really, quite honestly, a place where I see a lot of people struggle is they're so concerned with doing personal production that they don't allow their team members to succeed underneath them. And they're not willing to sacrifice a little short term to get some long-term leverage.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that you brought that up, because when you do decide to start a team, it's a team. You have to be willing to give up some of that control, some of that personal production,
Yeah.
maybe to get your team members some quick wins. And I think it's important too to note what you said. I mean, you were doing around 30 million as an individual, as an assistant, before you decided to start a team. I feel like now there's a lot of agents who, sold 12 houses and then they're wanting to start a team.
The team concept was still relatively new. I mean, it wasn't like people got into the business with the idea that they were going to become a realtor so they could start a team so that they can have a business. I think that's much more modern of a concept.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, it was like very few and far between, like only the really successful people, even thought about doing that. It was still very much like a get in the business, be successful yourself, sell a lot of real estate, and, have a good income and have a good life. For me, though, it was, I guess my introduction to personal development, if you will, came in the form of a network marketing company and a mentor back when I was in New York. And, I was never a good student in school, never went to college, never read a book. And it was only when I got involved in this network marketing company in New York, by which I made $0 in. I probably lost money because of how much money I spent going to all these events. But what I did get was an amazing education and an introduction to this world of personal development that I had never been exposed to before. And I became a voracious reader, and I just started consuming. And it was through that consumption that I learned the power of leverage and the power of building a team and how much you could achieve with the help of others. So when I decided I was going to build a real estate team, obviously my sister was one of those people, and I wanted to ensure her success. But these other people had come to me, and I felt very indebted to them as their leader to help them succeed. And I really was careful about making sure that we were transparent and we divided the wealth, so to speak, of those leads among those members. And I really supported them. And I think that was paramount to my success in getting off the ground, because you and I both know a lot of teams will start and then never really go anywhere. And again, I think that a root cause of a lot of that is that the leader of that team is more concerned with what they need to get out of it than what they're providing for their team. And they're not willing to look at that short-term sacrifice as a long-term leverage point for them.
Yep. I love it. Great point. So let's jump into 2017. So last year, How many houses did you sell? What was the volume, and what was the gross commission on that?
Yeah, so last year we sold 261 homes. Our volume was just around 76.5 million, and our goal last year was 75 million. So we hit our goal, so we were excited about that. And our gross commission income was just under 2.2 million.
Okay, awesome. And what would you say you guys will hit this year?
Well, right now our goal for this year is 85 million, and we have a stretch goal of 100 million. We'd love to break that 100 million mark. And right now, when we had our meeting yesterday, we're tracking somewhere in between those two. So we're kind of at like the 92 million range as far as where we're tracking out. But, it's not even the end of the first quarter yet. So we got a long way to go.
Awesome, man. Love it. Those are some big numbers. And I'm excited for you to hit that 100 million mark. Man, that'd be amazing to hit that stretch goal this year.
Yeah, it would be amazing for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the production would be good. It would mean that we're impacting a lot of people on our team and a lot of people in our community. But more personal to me is that I've actually stepped away from my real estate business completely this year. I mean, I'm still here. They're right next door on the other side of this wall. But I've really put my focus into prospector coaching and how we're going to utilize that to help serve more people. And it's allowing me to create room in my real estate company to bring up other leaders. And that's what we're really focused on this year, is bringing up a new level of leadership so that I'm creating more opportunities for them to grow within our company.
Yep, that's great. Love it. So where's your business coming from? You have like one primary source, or what would you say your top three are?
My top three sources of business would be online leads. So whether we're doing Zillow, Trulia, Google pay-per-click, so like I call all those online leads. So we're getting good sources from them. We get a lot of business from past clients and referrals. So probably a disproportionately large amount of business when you look at teams as a whole across the country, because my wife is so good about building those parties and those client for lives. There's a lot of events we do throughout the year where we just love on them and we continue to touch them. So I think our past client touches are really strong. And because of that, we get anywhere from a low end of 30 to 40% of our business from that pillar alone. And I think that's something worth mentioning, because I think it's often overlooked. As I go to these masterminds and these seminars, a lot of people are on, that transaction treadmill looking for that new business, but they're neglecting the sources of business that they've already established with their past clients. So that's something that's really good. And then the third one would be our seller prospecting. So, we're doing a lot of FSBOs, expireds, going after that business that way. And then those people obviously have houses to sell and people to refer.
Love it. Awesome. Yeah. And that's the same structure my business was as well. Those top three. I think you brought up a great point that the sphere and past client pillar is very often overlooked. People find it easier to spend more money on leads, to call another expired or for sale by owner, and they kind of neglect the people that really they should be loving on the most. So I know you guys do a great job with that. Tell us a little bit more about your client parties, maybe some giveaways that you're doing, or anything that you think might be unique to loving on those people.
Yeah. And AJ, if I may, I think the reason that happens, and, I think as we run our businesses, it's really important to just take a beat and be conscious about what's coming into our world, what we're consuming, like who we're getting counsel from. Because most of us out there are in some form of a program or another, or we're online consuming content. And I think that the reason a lot of people are stuck in like this new business and like these new sources of business is because that's what's being marketed to us. And if we just stop for a minute and understand like how much we're being marketed to as realtors and become consciously aware of that, that's why nobody's talking about SOI or sphere of influence, because there's no money in that. Nobody's teaching that.
Great point.
I'm very aware of that, and I understand it to be a long-term sustainable business. That's what's going to protect you through the upturns and downturns.
Yep.
So what we do is, we do events from, like annual barbecues where we'll think about throwing a wedding, like essentially like throwing a wedding in the scope and scale of what it is. Caterers, bands, magicians, like all, playhouses, like all these things where we bring it together and throw a huge party. And then we'll do smaller things like pie giveaways, or we're getting ready to do a pizza giveaway where they'll be able to get free pizza. Just ways to touch them. And it's not always about their attendance, because they won't be able to attend everything. We might get 400 or 500 people out to an event or participating in something, but everybody's getting the invitation. Everybody's getting the follow-up videos. Everybody's seeing what we're doing, and whether they can partake or not, it's that touch that makes an impact on them to say, hey, these guys aren't just about the sale. They're actually in the community and they care about. And we try to, get some causes. Anytime you're going to do something, if you can align it with a cause that you're passionate about as well and bring in some charity component, I think that also leaves a positive stamp on the environment and the community that you serve. I'll never forget one of my earliest mentors. I was in a class that I had paid to go to, and he was doing a training. And at the end of the training, he said, raise your hand if you'd like to be coached by me privately for free. And I raised my hand. I was like, yes, me. And I looked around and I was like, oh man, am I going to get a chance? And nobody else had raised their hand. And I just thought that was so weird. Like, they had all paid to be there. The training was amazing. The guy was amazing. And nobody else raised their hand. I don't know if it was for fear or what, but I certainly did. And he worked with me, and I asked him a couple months into him working with me, like, why did you do that? And he said, I always believe in giving back to the community that I serve. And I just thought that was really cool, and it left a mark on me, and it certainly impacted my success in those early days, having his mentorship and his guidance.
Oh, I love that, man. That is a great story. Very cool. So a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are, probably an individual agent or a very small team.
Yeah.
So they might be thinking, well, hey, that's great for you. You did, 2 million GCI. So you have the money to, throw these big events.
Sure.
So share a little bit about how, maybe what you did early on with these type of events, or what an individual agent could do. Because I feel like a lot of people are just fearful, like, man, what if nobody shows up, or what if only 10 people?
Yeah.
At all?
Yeah. So you're gonna have to take some risk when you grow a team, and I can talk more about that in a minute. But one of the earliest things that we did that was considered like a big event was we're based on Lake Norman, just north of Charlotte, and we have a big lake. And the largest boat on the lake that I could privately charter held about 100 people. So at the time, I had a very small team. We were doing less than 50 million a year in volume, and I had, a handful of past clients. So I filled that boat, those 100 people, with past clients, friends, people that I wanted to be clients, and my team members and their spouses. And it was a push. We got 100 people on there, but I certainly didn't want to waste any of that money. And it was an expensive event, but people still talk about that event to this day. And I think if you host an event for the right reasons and you put your own passion and your heart into it, and you really work that event, it'll be a great event and people will remember it and feel it.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. And pushing yourself to where you have to fill 100 seats because that's what's paid for.
Yeah.
You and whoever might be with you, an assistant or a team member, are going to push hard to make that happen.
And if you wanted to do something on a small scale, you can. I mean, you could do a movie day, and you could pre-negotiate with the movie theater for a Saturday movie, and you could rent out your own theater, and you can get that for $7 a head. So I think there's ways that you can do it if you're committed to giving back to your people in that way.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And it's all about positioning too. I'd always teach people, maybe they have a very small sphere, moved into a new area, or don't have a lot of past clients. But even if it's 5 or 10 people, you just position it like, hey, I'm doing a really small client appreciation party. Hey, I know you're not a client yet, but I'd love to do business with you when you are ready to make a move. So I'm just having 10 people get together. We're going to this restaurant, and I'd love for you to come. So you position it so that, hey, it's going to be small, and I'm actually selecting you because I really like you and I appreciate you.
Yeah, going back, I would have definitely started the event sooner. And I would have done something as simple as, you can usually rent a pavilion at a local park for $100 and bring some hot dogs and hamburgers and just get together and, throw that event for the family.
Yep. Perfect. Great advice. So let's jump into an aha moment. Take us to a moment in time, maybe personal or business, where you're just like, wow, that really makes sense. That was an aha moment for you. And tell us the story.
Yeah. So I alluded to this at the beginning, is when I went to my first actual formalized coaching conference, and there was about 2,000 people in attendance. And I got there and I didn't know what to expect. And when I showed up the first day at that ballroom and I saw all the other members who were wearing name tags, and those name tags had different ribbons on them of different colors, and the colors represented volume and gross commission income dollars that they were doing. And I saw how many people were there that were making hundreds of thousands of dollars, younger than me, older than me, skinnier than me, fatter than me. Like, I just walked around and I was like, I can totally do this. Like, if all these people are doing it, I can totally do it. And it was that environment that was so confidence inspiring, because I had my own limiting belief. I had my own, just limiting beliefs really is what it was. Having never been to college, I always felt like I was missing something, and, just not being from here, and like all these little things that go through our head that are really just lies. When I went to that conference, it just crushed all of them. And I signed up and I just became really, really coachable. And I didn't try to reinvent the wheel. I didn't try to put my own 2 cents in it. I just said, if somebody else is doing something at a 3x, 5x, 10x level of what I'm doing, I should just shut up and listen. And after I accomplish that thing at that level, then I get to decide how would I do it differently.
Yeah.
And that was just the motto that I took. I'm like, totally sold out, totally coachable, like, show me the way.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great aha. It starts with belief in yourself, then being coachable. I feel like one of the number one predictors of whether an agent's going to be successful or not is, are they coachable?
Absolutely.
It's so funny. Agents get in the business and right off the bat, they want to do it their own way. They hear people like you selling, over 200 homes a year, and they're like, oh, well, that sounds good. And then they completely do something else. Like, makes no sense.
And to that point, AJ, I've never been one of these that's like, hey, in order to grow a successful team, you have to disc everybody, and you can only hire IDs to be buyer's agents, and you have to hire SCs to be, coordinators. I take that into consideration, but I care more about their heart and their coachability, because right now, my number one producing agent on my team is more SC than he is ID. And I also have a person that used to be a coordinator on my team that characteristically, he had the traits of a coordinator from a personality standpoint, but he became an agent because he wanted to take that challenge on and try that out. And he's just flourished within that role. And I have people of all different personality types that are crushing it on my team and have seen great success as agents.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Motivation, like you said, the reason they want to do it, the heart, the coachability factor, those things are all so much more powerful than the disc personality profiler.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So now it's time for the famous four. A lot of books, obviously, but what would you say is maybe your favorite or your top 2?
Yeah. So we gotta kind of classify this, AJ, so I don't get in trouble with my maker. But we're going to say business books, some of my favorite business or personal development books that I've read. One of them goes way back, and this is probably one that none of you listeners have seen or heard. This goes back to the 80s, but it's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. That book, definitely find a copy, buy a copy on Amazon, is amazing. If you really want to put into practice some strong mindset principles and daily and weekly practices that you can put into place to visualize and prepare yourself for that next level, that's a book that you must read. So that's your old school book. A new school book that just came out last month that I recently read that I really like is Gary Vee's new book, Crushing It. I love how he breaks down very tactically all the different social media pillars out there, and also just gives you a really good look into like, where is this going? Like, where is marketing going? And he's very real and authentic in there. But in this book, he has these different sections of different people crushing it from all different industries. And I find that to be very fun to read. Like, hey, here's a whole section on how to crush it on Instagram right now, and why Instagram is a successful pillar, and what you do on Instagram to be successful, and what's different about Instagram versus Facebook. But then here's somebody who's actually taking that principle and putting it into practice and crushing it at a high level. So I just love the different case stories that he has in there that are put throughout the book, because stuff like that really helps open my mind and take me outside the industry. Because one of the traps that we can fall into is just being totally in our industry and only in our industry. I really spent more time in the last couple of years going outside of our industry to see what's happening and what's taking place and bring that back into my industry for something fresh and some new perspective.
Yep. I love it. I agree 100%. I'll definitely have to check out Gary Vee's new books. I haven't yet, but I've read all his others. And that other one, you mentioned that to me before, so I got to pick that one.
It's so good, man. It's so good. That was my first mentor that I mentioned earlier that gave me the free training. He made me read that right out of the gate. And I was like, man, this is so powerful. I still have my copy, and it's like all highlighted up, like every page.
That's awesome. We'll link both those up in the show notes so people can check that out. What would you say is the best advice you've ever received?
Man, you're going to laugh at me. I really, I thought about this audience that you're working with, and my heart definitely goes out to them, like these people that are wanting to crush it, get to that 6-figure and beyond mark. And I really thought about this because there's so many pieces of advice that came into my life at the right time. It's hard to say this is the best advice I got, but I woke up at like 3:00 in the morning last night, and I was thinking about this thing specifically, like what is the best advice that I got that could serve this audience? And I think that advice is just fail faster. So I grew up in this, environment, probably similar to many of you, that was always like, hey, you gotta do well in school. You gotta avoid making these mistakes. Don't do this. Don't fall into that trap. And it was like avoid failure at all cost. Mm-hmm. And then we come into this entrepreneurial world, and it's like, well, the only way you're ever going to be successful is to implement fast.
Yep.
Because what happens, and you know it, I know it, we go to these events, we get a great training. Everybody in there is like riveted and like sold out. This is amazing. Like, I love this training. I'm going to go back home. But what do? They do nothing.
Right.
Or a very small percentage will actually do anything. And I look back at the people that I was in the room with, or the people that I knew from the beginning of my journey, and I look at where they are now relative to where I am. And I feel grateful and blessed and all that. But I ask myself, what's the difference? The difference is I came back and I was willing to get uncomfortable, and I was willing to fail in order to succeed. And I think if you're an agent watching this right now and you're trying to have a breakthrough, you already have all the information that you need. You already know what needs to happen. You're just afraid of making a mistake, and therefore you're not getting to the next level because you're not taking the necessary actions.
Yep.
You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to do it, and you're going to follow somebody's advice to a T, and you're still going to fail because you're not them. And each one of you are your own, which is more important, that you have to fail because you have to go through your own failures to find your own success.
Yep.
And I'm not anybody that coached me. My business is not the same as anybody who I've been coached by. My business is my business. And it's the collection of everything I've learned, the mistakes I've made along the way, and what I've been able to assimilate from that and put together into my own business. None the least of which was deciding what did I want my business to look like and visualizing that, because that's an important component that, we could spend all day on. But I would just encourage you out there, go do something that scares you and be prepared to fail and be excited when you fail and just keep going.
Yep. Love that. I couldn't agree more. I was just reading an article, which was quoting Tony Robbins this morning, and he said, you must fail to succeed.
You must.
It's not an option. Like,
did you see Tony Robbins is in Laguna Beach or was there yesterday?
That's the article I was reading.
Nice. Yeah. I was like, man, I missed him by 2 weeks. Me and Tony could have been in Laguna together.
I know. And I'll be there in 2 weeks.
Nice.
Cool, man. What would you say is like a favorite tool? This could be personal life, productivity, an app.
Oh man, I got so many good little tools. I definitely recommend getting a 5-minute journal. We all know that we should journal, and a lot of us don't do it. And I think as I've been to conferences over the last, 2 years, high level stuff, like expensive stuff, it's been the same broken record. It's like journal, meditate, work out, eat right. And I kept going to these events, and I'd be like, man, every time I go, somebody that I super look up to and admire is saying I got to journal and meditate, and I'm not doing those things. Yeah. So I had to find a couple hacks there to make that happen. So my wife got me a 5-minute journal. I love it because it starts and ends every day with gratitude. Hey, what 3 things are you grateful for? What 3 things would be awesome if they happened today? And then you reflect back at night, what 3 things that were great that happened. So I really love that tool. It's called a 5-minute journal. And then the other thing for meditation is Headspace. And Headspace is just a great tool to condition you to meditate and guide you through that process. Because if you're like me, I'm like, I sit down and like my mind's going a million miles an hour and I couldn't concentrate. But the guided meditation that they have in there has really enabled me to put this into practice. And then I'll throw one more bonus tool at you right now that I really like, because it's allowed me to cut expenses and get rid of some tools like that we were using, like BombBomb, which gets very expensive for a whole team. And it's called Loom, Loom. And it's a free download that you can have. And it's just it goes right into your browser, and you can record your screen and yourself, just yourself without your screen, just your screen without yourself, or any combination of those 3. And what I love about it, we can get that video of ourselves like a BombBomb, if you're familiar with that tool. But even more important, let's say we're working with a client and we want to take them through a series of listings. We can have our screen and our video so we can walk them through that training and show them exactly what we want them, just as if we were sitting there with them in person. And that's a free tool. So I think that would be very helpful to your listeners.
Awesome. Love it. And we'll link those all up in the show notes as well. How awesome was it 2 months ago when we were in Cabo using the Headspace app on the beach?
Dude, I love it. And I'm still using it. It's like the best app ever.
Yeah, it's so good. And it's only 10 minutes. So, cool. What do you love to do outside of business?
Man, I just love being outside. I feel like I get a lot of inspiration from being outside. I think there's something very spiritual and creatively oriented about getting outside of the 4 walls that we're in, and would encourage everybody to spend more time outside. I recently got back from Park City where I was speaking at a mastermind. And while I was out there, I had the opportunity to go snowmobiling at like 10, 11, 12,000 feet elevation. So we had so much fun doing that for a day that we did it a second day. Anytime I can get outside and just see nature and beauty, I just really find that to be very rejuvenating and good for my spirit. So I would encourage that.
I agree 100%. That's my favorite thing.
Like to do. Cabo on the beach, working out on the beach. That was awesome.
Amazing. All right. So let's end with this. Share a piece of parting advice that you'd give to a new agent trying to break through 100,000 per year in net income.
100,000 per year in net income. Brand new agent. I think it's really simple. And I'm not saying it's easy because we know it's not, but it's simple. Like, figure out what the average sale price is in your market. So, for example, conservatively in our market, we could say 250,000. The average sale price is higher than that, so let's be conservative. At 250,000, and if we were to assume that we could earn 3% commission, $7,500 per transaction, to break through that 100,000 mark, I only need to sell 14 homes. Like, it's really not that complicated. I think we make it complicated. So if I want to break through that mark and I only need to sell 14 homes, where are those 14 coming from? And I would literally visualize. I'd have, notes on my iPhone, and I'd be like writing down where my sales are coming from. And I would visualize where those sales are as I'm working with people and start to tally that up and take assessment. Too many agents don't know their numbers and don't know where they are. So, a whole quarter goes by and they don't even know like what their volume was. Like, I would be super aware of where I'm at. So when I'm going into February, how did my January look? Am I on pace or off pace? And what I would share with this agent that's trying to break through the 6-figure mark is no different than what we share with our team. We're just doing it for them at a high level so that they can be part of that. You have to do it for yourself. So like, visualizing and understanding where you are will create this unconscious awareness so that your unconscious is working for you and helping you meet that goal. It wants to bring that goal together. And if you're going into February and you're behind on your goal, you're going to be less likely to just, slack off, not do the work, because you're already behind and you know what that goal is and why it's meaningful to you. So to have that goal, visualize it, reintroduce the why behind it. Like, why are you doing this? Why do you want to make 6 figures? Is it so you can buy a new car? Is it so you can like brag to your friends? Like, what is the true why? Like, why are you getting up in the morning and why are you doing this? And then to that, I would really encourage people to go deep and journal about that. And this might sound a little bit woo-woo for your listener, but I'm just sharing with you what worked for me. And when I look back, the difference between where I'm at and where some of my friends were who didn't put these practices into place. Because I promise you this, it's not about that thing that you think you need to buy online that you haven't bought. Not to go six figures, not even to go multiple six figures. It might be about that thing when you're getting ready to scale a team and go multiple millions of GCI, but to go six figures or healthy six figures, multiple six figures, it's really going to come down to daily disciplines and habits and taking advantage of what you already have available to you. And, you know, if I was to fall down tomorrow and have zero and have no money and have to start all over again, it would be simple. Like, I wouldn't even think twice what I would need to do. I would go find a team in my marketplace and I would go to work for them. Now you might say like, oh, that sounds counterproductive. You have a team now. Why would you go back and do that? If I had no money and I started over tomorrow, I know that would be the fastest way to predictable paychecks, because if I had the skills I have and I was starting over from scratch, I know I could apply those skills at a high level on a team where all that stuff's being done for me and I could just go produce. And then after I produced and I was making six figures or multiple six figures, even on that team, then I could go out and I could grow my own team from there.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
One more piece of advice, if I may, that I would give to agents, and this is something that's like super personal to me and I'm passionate about sharing, is I see too many people that are getting to that six-figure mark and then making the most tragic mistake at all. And it's that they're going six figures or just beyond, and then they're increasing their lifestyle disproportionate to that income. So all of a sudden, they might be making more money than they've ever made, and now they need to get the new car, the new house, the new vacations, the new parties, the new furniture, like all this new stuff, just because it's there. And it pains me to see that, because I think that if they make it that far, they're able to make it all the way to the top of this real estate game. But too often they overspend at that first stage and they never make it to stage 2 or 3 of this journey because they're over leveraged and too much in debt. So my encouragement is, hey, go crush six figures, but maintain a lifestyle as similar to where you're at as you are now so that you can go to multiple millions.
Yeah. It's hard to reinvest back in your business when you're spending it all on cars and toys.
It is.
Good. Love it. So tell the audience a little bit, like who's Prospector Coaching for, and where can people go to get some more information on that?
Yeah. So Prospector Coaching is just me being real with people, sharing what I learned. I've had over a dozen professional mentors in my life. I've learned a lot of things about what works and what doesn't work. And I also have this belief that your business should be unique to you, and that there's a way to customize it and build it out so that it's what you want, and you're not just copying somebody else's business that's not going to be authentic to you, and ultimately you're going to be unhappy with the result. So what we've done is we've taken all of what we've learned and what we do here, and we've put it into online modules where people can learn at their own pace, where they're not paying, say a high coaching fee per month for me and them to jump on the phone. I mean, we can do that. That is an option, but it's not really what I see that the community needs right now. I think the community needs tools, and they need experiential learning where they can go in and learn on their own time and figure out what they need to put in place next, and believe in your ability to figure out. Our mentor, Brendan Burchard, always says, people need to believe in their ability to figure out, and I'm going to give them all the tools to do that. You can go to prospectorcoaching.com to get introduced to us and learn a little bit more about us and what we do.
Awesome. Very good. So check that out. We'll link that up also in the show notes at sixfigureagentpodcast.com. And if you like this interview and want to see more of them, be sure to hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. And also, if you're listening on iTunes, subscribe to the show. It really helps. And John, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you, man. And we'll talk soon.
Hey, Jay, man, I love what you're doing with this podcast. And I think it's a great community you're serving. So I wish you all the luck.
All right. Thanks, man. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.